Good evening. I'm John Batchelor. This is the John Batchelor Show. Larry Kudlow, CNBC and Kudlow Radio joins as my colleague and co-host, and I begin tonight with a poll. There are polls in the air everywhere. It's raining polls. Larry, a very good evening to you. The poll is from New Hampshire's latest understanding of the primary contest for the Democratic Party. It shows that Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont, an avowed socialist who caucuses with the Democrats, has closed within 6 points of Hillary Clinton, former Secretary of State, former twice-elected senator from New York, former First Lady, twice-elected First Lady. 6 points, Larry. I understand that Bernie Sanders is said to be a senior member of the cognoscenti, and after all, he would not do well in a general election, and this is just a momentary tantrum by the Democratic Party. But this tantrum now includes the voting public in New Hampshire. Certainly, Larry, we have to pay attention to the fact that the Democrats are as unhappy with their choices as it appears that Republicans are with theirs. Good evening to you, Larry.
Good evening, John. You know, I've always felt, yes, there's a fringe element of the Democratic Party that will be for socialist Bernie Sanders, okay? And incidentally, in the Wall Street Journal NBC News poll, he has positives. He's 24% positive, 19% negative. Hillary is 37% positive, 48% negative. So she's got a real problem. I've always felt that Bernie Sanders is a vessel, and he's a vessel for Democratic voters to express their dissatisfaction with Ms. Clinton. And I think that dissatisfaction is rising. And I think all these issues, you know, about the Internet and classified documents and so forth, there's a trust factor that's killing her right now.
The email server is getting worse. I report that there's indication that in 2009, that email server crashed. We have this from emails revealed within these last days. This is the Abadan emails complaining. This is October of, and there's in October of 2012 there was a crash as well. So what we have here are more questions and no answers about that server. It seems to be wearing on Mrs. Clinton's numbers in New Hampshire. Setting that aside, we're going to turn immediately to the Republican contest, and within these next hours, a debate about the major Republican candidates. The 10 have been chosen, and I welcome Jimmy Pethokoukis in the American Enterprise Institute to put to him a question that Larry Kudlow put to all of us in a most recent column of the National Review Online. James, I present to you the question that Larry asks everyone to see how it translates. Is Donald Trump the by far and away leader of the Republican Party for the nomination for the presidency? Is he a supply-sider? Good evening to you, Jimmy.
Good evening, John. Well, I think Donald Trump is a salesman, and every salesman knows your ABCs. Always be closing. What do I have to tell you to get you in this car today? He is a salesman. And if what Republicans want to hear, if they want to hear a certain line on immigration, that's what he'll give them. If he thinks Larry Kudlow wants to hear something about taxes, I think that's what he will tell Larry Kudlow about taxes. And I think there's a lot more to being, a conservative in economics than merely being for low tax rates. I think that's part of it, but I think it's also philosophy about the size of government, about the power of markets, about being pro-market, not necessarily being pro-business. It's the difference between a crony capitalist and a capitalist who believes in competition. I don't think Donald Trump has a core set of beliefs other than Trumpism, and that he is a diehard.
Well, I go to the author himself. Larry, is Donald Trump a supply-sider?
Well, look, the reason I wrote that somewhat mischievous column is based on a book that was put out under his name in 2011. And I've since learned that he was not really the author of the book. Somebody wrote the book for him. Surprise, surprise. But in that book, he does express substantial reductions in marginal tax rates. I mean, very low. Abolishing the corporate tax, cutting cap gains, cutting dividends. So he's got a supply-side tax-cutting agenda from that book in 2011. Now, he also has a history earlier where he wanted a big wealth tax on American millionaires.
I believe it was 14.5% on assets over $10 million one time to close the deficit, or some fantastic version.
And also, the other part, Jimmy didn't mention this, but on trade, there is no question, and I wrote this, that he is a protectionist. I mean, he's talking about 25, 35% tariffs on goods from China and Mexico and who knows where else. And protectionism is not part of the supply side growth agenda. Protectionism is a tariff and a tax, and it will damage growth and damage consumers and damage most producers. So, will the real Donald Trump stand up? We won't know that until Thursday's debate. We may not know that on Thursday either. I did get an email, John, from one of his staffers who didn't say, we agree, we disagree. They just thanked me for writing the column. I don't know what to make.
That goes to Jimmy's point. Jimmy, do we buy the car? Does he close the deal?
Well, listen, he's doing better than a lot of people had anticipated. There's, he's saying things that the media and all the pundits said that's going to sink him. It doesn't sink him. He seems to be gaining energy rather than losing energy. I'm not sure anybody else in the field can say it. We're about to enter a new phase where he is going to be challenged directly in these debates. We'll see how he does. I don't know. I guess I just have a deep, lingering suspicion about Donald Trump and what he is about, based on not just what he says in 2015, but a lifetime in the public eye.
Yeah.
Is he someone who's going to carry the banner for markets, conservative economics, who believes it, down to his very core, in the way someone like Ronald Reagan did? Boy, I have big questions about that.
Yeah, I mean, look, on this issue of, let's take limited government. I mean, Jonah Goldberg of National Review has written critically of Trump, and down through the years, Trump has not indicated any conservative values regarding the size and scope of government. In fact, he endorsed Hillary Care, and he has endorsed single payer, i.e. government-run health care. And so I think that's very important, and I think his wealth tax idea is very important. He's also, this strays from the economics, but he's also down through the years been a pro-choicer. And it'll be interesting to see on the pro-choice versus pro-life debate. I would guess Planned Parenthood and this whole travesty is going to come up Thursday, and it'll be very interesting to see where Trump comes
Larry,
out.
there was a late headline where Donald Trump has called for the shutting down of government. I think he listed the federal government unless Planned Parenthood is defunded. So he's already zigged for the zagging of his previous statements about choice.
It would really be as if, Ronald Reagan, the 1980 nominee, if back in 1972 he had been head of Republicans form of govern, and then he became the Republican nominee. That kind of switch in beliefs at that point in life, I think, really raises questions.
The question, Jimmy, which is so interesting to me, let me come back to your earlier point. Trump has already done better than either of us probably would have thought a month ago.
Sure.
And the attack on John McCain's prisoner of war heroism, which I found just unspeakable attack. But whatever, it doesn't seem to have hurt him. Now, Jimmy, he does have really high negatives in all these polls. It's like 20% of Republicans like him, but 60% of Republicans don't like him. And I just don't know what to make of that.
I'm appalled by his comments about John McCain, and I'm appalled that 20% of Republicans don't care. That they don't care, because what they do you really want a serious person who's going to win an election and who's going to govern, or do you want someone who is basically a pundit, is going to say zingers, is going to go after all the people you don't like? I think it really speaks to a lack of seriousness of America in 2015, if that is what we want.
Gentlemen, I ask you both, because we've been in media these last years. Haven't we watched the coarsening of civil discourse in America because a comedy show, Comedy Central, and actors reading written lines in order to attack Republicans are applauded as newsmakers? Isn't Donald Trump a pony-haired version of Jon Stewart? Isn't that what we're watching, Larry?
Well, not exactly. Not exactly, because, look, I've known Donald for a long time, and by the way, enjoyed very good relations with him. Don't forget, whatever his foibles, and Jimmy's laying it out pretty well, and I think I am too. He is a serious man. He is a very good businessman. You've got to give him that. He's a very clever, crafty guy, and he wrote a book called The Art of the Deal, and he's been a good deal maker down through the years. He's also a man who suffered reverses in business. Look, his 4 casinos in Atlantic City all went bankrupt,
right.
But he came back from that, and he's doing better than ever. So in that sense, I don't want to compare him to Jon Stewart. I don't think, some people have called Trump a clown. I don't agree with that. What I'm looking for is, I think what my friend Jimmy P is asking, what do you really believe in your core? What do you said thus and such 10 years ago, you said thus and such 5 years ago in your book, now you're saying thus and such about Planned Parenthood tonight. What do you really believe in? I mean, I just think that will only come out over time. Maybe the debate will be helpful, maybe not.
We'll speak to Donald Trump and the others when we come back. Also, I want to talk to Jimmy Pethokoukis about a piece he has up at the American Enterprise Institute about how the middle class has done much better than we're led to believe by some of the leading politicians running for president. Larry Kudlow of CNBC and Kudlow Reports, James Pethokoukis of the American Enterprise Institute. I'm John Batchelor.